To today's episode of Taraweeh Truffles. What I need you to do is say Sam where you're from and maybe share this. Maybe tell your friends that we're on, maybe start a watch party. Maybe, press a like button, something like that while we're waiting. We've got 4 minutes until we start. And then we will begin 4 minutes until we start. And when we start, then we will begin saying salams and where we're from. Welcome, 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 welcome. We got Shumaila, alaikum assalam. Thank you for always tuning in, Shumaila. Somebody from Windsor, I can't see who it is. Gohar, alhamdulillah, I'm good. Zahra, alaikum assalam. Pakistan, Nimra, alaikum assalam. Noran, Dhaka, Bangladesh, alaikum assalam. Facebook user from Canada. So when I do this, I can't see everybody's names. I think the people that are from inside a locked Facebook group, it doesn't actually tell me who you are. I think that's the case. Crimean girl, wa alaikum assalam. New York, Nimra, alaikum assalam. Hamna, alaikum assalam. Sunjid Hassan, alaikum assalam. Melgo in Toronto. Shaza, alaikum assalam. I'm good. Lahore, Pakistan. Lubna, alaikum assalam. Waheed, give my salam to your family and your brother and all those good people. Ramla in Canada, alaikum assalam. Lubna in Toronto. Zahra, alaikum assalam. 2 more minutes left. 2 minutes left. The countdown begins. We got Emmy, alaikum assalam. Muna from Frankfurt, Pakistan. Janaina. It's weird, I have to look at it down here and the camera's up here. Maybe I should. Anyways, we're about to begin anyway. Maybe that's another time. Sylvia, alaikum assalam. Manawar, Saeed, alaikum assalam, in London. Alhamdulillah. Zahra, we've got Fazia, alaikum assalam. Maria in Chicago, alaikum assalam. One more minute. 1 more minute. 1 more minute. 1 more minute, and then we start. 1 more minute, and then we start. Alhamdulillah, I'm doing good. Thank you, Fazia. Ahmed from Nigeria, alaikum assalam. Zahira in Qatar, alaikum assalam. Hope all the kids are doing good. Yasmina in Ottawa says you never answered my question in the last visionary session. You mean the 1 in 300 questions? Inshallah, I'll give time at the end here. So 15 minutes, inshallah, and then I'll get started. I'll answer some questions. All right, it's the top of the hour. Time for us to begin. Time for us to begin. Take 1. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi man wala amma ba'd. Welcome to today's episode of Taraweeh Truffles. Today's day is the 18th of Ramadan, and we are talking with, we're going to be speaking about Surah Al-Mu'minun, which is ayah number 60. We're talking about ayah 60, 61, and 62. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in these verses, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم, وَالَّذِينَ يُؤْتُونَ مَا آتَوْا وَقُلُوبُهُمْ وَجِلَةٌ أَنَّهُمْ إِلَىٰ رَبِّهِمْ رَاجِعُونَ أولئك يسارعون في الخيرات وهم لها سابقون ولا نكلف نفسا إلا وسعها وَلَدَيْنَا كِتَابٌ يَنطِقُ بِالْحَقِّ وَهُمْ لَا يُظْلَمُونَ. You know what? I just had memories of being in Masjid Nabawi and hearing Al-Qasimi recite these verses. He's my favorite reciter, by the way, Masjid Nabawi. Actually, there's a couple of good reciters in Masjid Nabawi. But so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks in these verses, وَالَّذِينَ يُؤْتُونَ مَا آتَوْا. Those who give what they give. يُؤْتُونَ مَا آتَوْا. So they give what they give. وَقُلُوبُهُمْ وَجِلَةٌ. And their hearts are fearful. Their hearts are وَجِلَةٌ أَنَّهُمْ إِلَىٰ رَبِّهِمْ رَاجِعُونَ. That they will be returning to their Lord. وَالَّذِينَ يُؤْتُونَ مَا آتَوْا وَقُلُوبُهُمْ وَجِلَةٌ أَنَّهُمْ إِلَىٰ رَبِّهِمْ رَاجِعُونَ. That they will be returning to their Lord. So these, they are those who give what they give, but their hearts are still fearful that they're going to be returning to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. أُولَٰئِكَ. These are the people whom يُسَارِعُونَ فِي الْخَيْرَاتِ. They race in the good deeds. They race in good deeds. وَهُمْ لَهَا سَابِقُونَ. And they outstrip others therein. So they are running faster than other people in these good deeds. أُولَٰئِكَ. These people are fearful of the day that they're going to stand in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah says that they are racing for good deeds, and they are indeed winning in this race. وَلَا نُكَلِّفُ نَفْسًا إِلَّا وُسْعَهَا. And indeed, we do not put a burden on a soul more than it can bear. وَلَدَيْنَا كِتَابٌ يَنطِقُ بِالْحَقِّ. And with us is a book, a record that speaks the truth. وَهُمْ لَا يُظْلَمُونَ. And they will not be wronged. So in these verses, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it brought to mind these verses because Aisha radiallahu anha asked the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam about these verses. So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that these are people who do good. And they do good things. Now, the good things that we're talking about here are, it's not just sadaqah, but it's salah. They do their salah. They do their fasting. They do their hajj. They do charity. They do their zakat. They do all these good things. They give what they give. But yet, their situation, how do they react after they give or do good things? Their reaction isn't a reaction of pride or arrogance. They're actually fearful. So what is it about, they give these they do good deeds, but their situation is that they're fearful because they're going to stand in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what is it that they're fearful about? They're fearful, number one, that perhaps these good deeds won't be accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or perhaps they're afraid that it's not good enough and that they should have done more. So this is the attitude of believers, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the next verse, and actually glad tidings for them, that they are the ones who are winning the race. So the people who are winning the race are the ones that think that the ones who are afraid that they're not going to win the race. You know what's interesting? I was once talking to this super, super intelligent person. You're talking about like multiple PhDs, very intelligent. And I was doing this I asked him, on a scale of 0 to 10, how educated, how far in your education career do you think you've gone? And he told me something like 4. And I'm like, if you're a 4, then all of us are a -60 or something like that. But I realized that the reason that he gave himself such a low mark is because he has such high standards. And people who are not that intelligent will say that they're a 10 out of 10 in intelligence. So you'll see here's kind of like a similar concept, that with the people who do good deeds and inshallah ta'ala doing it for the sake of Allah, and the people that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is happy with, the actual situation that they're in is that they're fearful when they give these good deeds that perhaps it's not good enough, perhaps they should have done more, perhaps Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala may not accept them. This fearful forward seeking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy and seeking to race in good deeds. In Hajj, I noticed there's this recurring mental feeling that people have after they've done their, it's the day of Arafah and it's the day after, maybe the 10th, 11th. I always notice, and I try to pick up on this, I see people sitting sad in the tents, and I'll go up to them and ask them, why are you feeling sad? And these are usually really good people in the group who tried really hard. And their attitude is something along the lines of, I don't know if I've done enough, and how do I know if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has accepted what I've done? And as you see here in this verse, that's exactly what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said about the people who race for good deeds and then who will be successful. That's their attitude, is that they're always in this constant state of, did I do enough? Or will Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be pleased with me? And then they do more. Did I do enough? Is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala pleased with me? And they keep doing more and more and more. They keep coming closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They don't just stop and say, hey, you know what? I made this great donation at some place, and you know what? I'm good to go. Khalas. That's not their attitude. In the next verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أُولَٰئِكَ يُسَارِعُونَ فِي الْخَيْرَاتِ. And actually, this is in comparison. I'm not bringing up the verses that come before this and after this, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is comparing them to people from hellfire and who turn their backs on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is the characteristic of the good people. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أُولَٰئِكَ يُسَارِعُونَ فِي الْخَيْرَاتِ. These are people who race for good deeds. So this hastening to good deeds, you see it's another recurring theme that good deeds is something that you race with other people about. When other people are racing for materialistic type of things, oh, I need my house better than that house, I need my car better than this person's car, or I need my clothes better than that other person's clothes, what you want to race for is good deeds. Did you feed more people than, your friend? Did you read more Quran or more quality Quran than your friend? You're racing with other people to do good deeds. So, and even as you see people online, as you're, rather than being jealous of somebody on an Instagram account of what they're wearing, you want to be a good jealousy if you see somebody who memorized Quran and is teaching Quran on Instagram or Facebook or something like that. Then you want to say, inshallah ta'ala, if I have, when I memorize the Quran, what I'm going to do, I'm going to do better than that person. I'm going to race for good deeds and race to seek Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's reward. And if you see somebody spending for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a good jealousy, let's suppose you have somebody, they're overseas and they're with poor people and they're encouraging others to give. You'll see a lot of that in this month of Ramadan. This is like a good jealousy. You want to say to yourself, inshallah ta'ala, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blesses me with time and with wealth, I want to do what that person is doing. That's how I want to spend my time. That's how I want to spend my wealth, helping those people. وَهُمْ لَهَا سَابِقُونَ. Allah subhanahu, in this verse it says, it's translated as, and they outstrip others therein. As-sabiqun, I've read in the tafsir, it's a little different from what the English translation is saying. وَهُمْ لَهَا سَابِقُونَ, and they are for it, like they're winning or they will be successful. Like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has already written that if this person is in the game, is in the race, whether they are moving forward, or whether people are beating you or people falling behind, whether you gave, you fed 30 people and somebody else fed 60 people, this race for goodness, alhamdulillah, everybody wins. Everybody wins. Whether you win a race against somebody or not, that person wins and you win because they are as-sabiqun. They are the racers. They are the ones who earned Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's favor, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is praising them. The next verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَا نُكَلِّفُ نَفْسًا إِلَّا وَسَعَهَا. And I would compare this to carrying a load. So imagine that here's a truck and there's these big bags that need to be carried, let's suppose bags of cherries or something like that, right? Big bags that need to carry. And if there's a huge bag that needs to be carried, it's called, carrying a load. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and we'll never ask somebody or hold somebody accountable to carry a load that is more than they can bear, that's more weight than they can bear it. So it doesn't mean that, somebody might not come into a difficult position. They may be in a difficult position that's beyond what they can load, but they will not be held accountable for that. So for example, if somebody was being tortured, and it's beyond what they can handle, then they're not going to be held accountable for what they say under in such a dire situation. وَلَا نُكَلِّفُ نَفْسًا إِلَّا وَسَعَهَا. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would never put a burden or hold somebody accountable for a burden more than they can bear. So whatever test you have, say alhamdulillah, you know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala won't put a burden more than you can bear. So even in these in this race, that there were some people who had, maybe they have more than, they're able to give more, or maybe they have more money to give, or they have more time, or something like that. It doesn't matter, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would not, don't worry, this paradise that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is speaking about, as it says in the tafsir, this paradise that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about is attainable because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would never put a burden more than somebody can bear out of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy. And then the verse finishes off, ayah 62, وَلَدَيْنَا كِتَابٌ يَنْطِقُ بِالْحَقِّ. And with us is a kitab in which everything is written, يَنْطِقُ بِالْحَقِّ, that speaks with the truth. And this is a glad tiding, both a glad tiding and a warning. It actually, this kitab combines between the verses that are speaking about believers and the good deeds that they're doing, and it's also speaking to disbelievers and when people do haram, because this book has everything accounted for. So if you've done a good deed and it was a long time ago and you don't remember the good deed, whether it was small or large, or it was a good deed that was just an intention, or is a small thing or a big thing, and maybe you forgot about it, whether you remember or you forget, it doesn't matter, because it is documented in this kitab with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَلَدَيْنَا كِتَابٌ يَنْطِقُ بِالْحَقِّ. With Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, with us, is a book that speaks the truth, وَهُمْ لَا يُظْلَمُونَ. And no one will be wronged. And so if somebody did good, even if you forget about it all these years, and that's something really interesting, is that people want to hold on to their wealth so much. They want to hold on to their wealth so much. And I have some good news for you, is that if you want to document that you will never lose it, that's giving it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That when somebody gives for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that wealth will always be yours. You've made the wealth eternal. You've sent that wealth to the hereafter to take care of you, in the hereafter, but also in this dunya, to take care of you here and in the hereafter. And a special reminder here, at the end of Ramadan, there's a lot of people who have fundraising budgets. They have fundraising budgets for the masajid, they have bills to pay and so on. And because the masajid are closed, that a lot of these fundraisers didn't happen. And there's a lot of people in difficulty, and mostly these places, people are not fundraising for themselves. They're fundraising for, the houses of Allah, the Islamic projects that are out there, the schools, and all of these things. So just a special encouragement and reminder from these verses, we should race for these good deeds and help out, inshallah ta'ala, in these final days. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give you more. Jazakallah khairan. If somebody's got a question, do you have a question? I will now be taking some questions. And before I said the dua type of questions, visionary type of questions, because people didn't take it, might be confusing, but I don't mind if you ask now. Who's got a question? Janina says, why does Surah Tawbah start without Bismillah? Surah Tawbah is, it was a declaration of against the mushrikeen, and it was recited in Hajj time and called out that after this year, no mushrik, no polytheist would be allowed to perform Hajj, and they would not be allowed into the Haram area. So it was a declaration of basically war. So it doesn't start with Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. It says Bara'ah. Allah has nothing to do like that. Any tips you can share with us on the last 10 days and how to step up our efforts? So the main thing that I recommend on the whole Visionaire class was about preparing your du'as for the last 10 nights of Ramadan. Things that you really care about from the bottom of your heart. When you have du'as that you really care about, inshallah ta'ala, that will intensify your attention and focus during these last 10 nights of Ramadan. You have, I'd also recommend that you seek Laylatul Qadr on all of the last 10 nights, because on the odd nights, your odd nights might be different from somebody else's odd nights. And so you want to make sure that you catch Laylatul Qadr. So don't just pray on the odd nights, because the masjid down the road or the country next door to your country has different odd nights than yours. You don't want to miss out on the Laylatul Qadr. You want to be praying Taraweeh if you can, if you're praying, and you've got your recitation of Quran, you've got your dua, you've got your dhikr, and inshallah ta'ala, make intention to benefit from all of the last 10 days. This one's easy. Is allowed to give zakat al-mal to a sister, like a female? That, yeah, it's can. Are you talking about your own sister or a sister? If you're talking about your own sister, then it depends if your parents have passed away or not. And if they have and you're responsible to take care of your sister, then no, you're not allowed to pay zakat al-mal. But if you're just talking about a female, of course you can. How do I keep khushu' in Salah? So khushu' comes and goes. Prophet ﷺ said that some prayers, a person will pray and half of their prayer counts, or a quarter of their prayer counts, and because their khushu', their mind is slipping. How do you keep khushu'? You should follow the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, such as using miswak, making wudu before Salah, praying on time, knowing what you're reciting in the Salah. Maybe try new surahs maybe surahs that you're memorizing and bring it into your Salah and try the new surahs. Don't leave ruku', don't leave sujood until you have calmed down and your body has settled, and then move to the next prayer. And like that, and you'll find it. And if you Google that, how to have khushu' in Salah, I think there's a nice little book that says like 33 ways to have khushu' in Salah. Just Google that. It has lots of great tips from the Sunnah. What is taqwa? Can tahajjud be prayed a few minutes before Fajr? Yeah, you can. You can. Wasafa, I was actually wondering about your Wasafa and what happened. So I was thinking about that. Whatever happened to Wasafa? If you didn't finish your du'as or prepare them before the last 10 nights of Ramadan, last 10 nights of Ramadan start on Wednesday night. They start Wednesday night, so you still have today and tomorrow and even like things. So just get it done. So what should you do? You should do it. Do it. Do it. What are you waiting for? Do it. Health du'as for self and others are hard for me. Any input will help. Thanks. I don't have any input. Just make du'a. I don't know how to design du'as for people. It doesn't work for me. I don't know. That's your du'as. Zahra says, any tips for improving our akhlaq in these last 10 days? Shaitan isn't there, so what's the issue? I think maybe you're talking about like you're at home and you're maybe fighting with people or something, or others are fighting with you and people are just treating each other badly and stuff. And not only is it, like kind of like this cabin fever of lockdown, but you've also got Ramadan fasting, and maybe hormones are flipping around and stuff like that from the fasting. Hopefully by now it should have passed by. So one thing that actually comes to mind is eating healthy. If somebody bad adab with other people. It's because the person is tired, and obviously that's another thing, is get adequate rest if you can, inshallah ta'ala. Ask people if you need rest, like, hey, can you help me out a little bit? Let me get a nap here and there. And of course, having the intention. I think people say that they want to have good adab, and they get opportunities to do it, but then it's like, well, what happened to that good intention that you wanted to have good adab? If somebody you're interacting with is not acting bad, is not acting good, the Prophet ﷺ said that our response should be inni sa'im, inni sa'im. That if anybody swears at you or tries to harm, tries to provoke you, your response is to say, inni sa'im, I'm fasting, I'm fasting. And so that's a key lesson there, is to avoid situations, is to turn away from those situations. Ashka's question, is there a salah you suggest other than Taraweeh? Obviously the 5 daily prayers for sure. So the 5 daily prayers, somebody's praying, there's the Taraweeh prayers, the Witr prayer. There's other sunnah prayers that happen like during the day, but generally speaking, at night, the Taraweeh prayers are, that's the main thing that the Prophet ﷺ did. Taraweeh prayers, tahajjud prayers, as you call them. Here we go, Yasmina. Yesterday, during Visionary, you said that you would have to turn to Allah SWT all the time, not during hardships only. Otherwise, He keeps testing us. I'm not saying that He does test us. I said the best thing that could happen to you is that He keeps testing you, because that's the only way you're going to turn back to Allah. But actually, the worst case scenario is, what if somebody only turns back to Allah during hardships, and then Allah doesn't send them hardships, so they don't turn back to Allah? So that's the full thing that I said. But let's continue with your question. You said that you have to turn to Allah all the time, not during hardships only. Otherwise, He keeps testing us. I've turned to Allah constantly and more since my marriage in October 2018, but I'm going through endless hardships. Does that mean I'm not doing the right thing, or I'm not the person Allah wants me to be? So I don't know the answer to, but let's just take, you made it like very specific because it's your situation. Let's step away from your situation. Let's ask it generally. If somebody says, I have hardships, and in these hardships, I turn back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the hardships don't end. They don't end. They keep coming. And immediately, you know what? Different scenarios come up to my mind. It may be that you have a expectation of how long the hardship should last. And you're saying October 2018. So if October 2018, you're talking about, maybe it's been 19, 20, it hasn't been 2 years. You've been married for a year and a half. So what is the expectation of how long you should be tested before everything turns to happily ever after? What is the expectation? I'm reminded of the situation in which a man was tortured when the companions came from a torture session, and he went to the Prophet ﷺ and he got angry at the Prophet ﷺ and said, why don't you make dua for us? Why do we keep getting punished? And the Prophet ﷺ got angry back at him. He just came from a torture session and he's getting angry at the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet ﷺ said back to him in response that the people before us used to be, the torture they would go through, they would be buried in their neck, and they would be sawed in half and fall into 2 pieces. And they used to be combed with combs of steel and separating their skin from their body. And he said, but that wouldn't turn them back from their faith. وَلَكِنَّكُمْ تَسْتَعْجِلُونَ. But as for you, you are hasty. And so the Prophet ﷺ, there are times, and I even calculated made dua. So he made dua against at the time that when the Prophet ﷺ was doing sajda and they threw intestines on the Prophet ﷺ's back, and another time that one of the leaders of Mecca stepped on the Prophet ﷺ's neck and was pushing his face into the ground, and he was almost gonna kill the Prophet ﷺ. And Fatima, the daughter of the Prophet ﷺ, came and she was crying and she was cursing them and pushing them off her father. And the Prophet ﷺ made dua against them. at the Kaaba. And they got really scared. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala answered that dua, and they were destroyed, but they were destroyed in the Battle of Badr. And the Battle of Badr took place from the time that happened to the Battle of Badr was 10 years. It happened a decade later. And so even as you reflect on this, is the messenger of Allah, and his dua, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala answered it, but not now. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, now wasn't the time. And so they continued to be tested for 10 years. When somebody gets married and then I tell them, and they tell, hey, I'm facing some hardship. I don't know the hardship that you're in. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help you. But marriage is a test. And then I say, this one brother, he told me, I said, how long have you been married? And then he said, 8 years. And I go, whoa, you still have problems 8 years later? And then he goes, no, I didn't mean 8 years. I said 8 months. I go, 8 months? You've only been married for 8 months and you can't be patient? I go, you got wait till you're 8 years and then let's start talking about it. So all of this said and done, inshallah ta'ala, it may be. Anyways, I hope you got something from that. I won't tell you what the conclusion is. Wallahu a'lam. Janaina's question says, can we recite from Quran from our phone when we're not fasting? There's a difference of opinion about reciting Quran in the menses. If you're of the opinion that you can recite Quran in menstrual cycle, then yes, you can read while holding a phone like that. Great. Nasinga says, how do you balance not holding on to wealth and saving for the future, which requires holding on to some wealth for future needs and generations even? Which is a great question, because when I'm saying about, you want your wealth to go to the hereafter, there's also principles of giving that we don't give all our wealth. In fact, the first dollar that you have, you keep it for yourself. The second dollar that you have is for your family. Third dollar that you have is, as the hadith goes, that there are responsibilities that we have, just like those companions who said on their deathbed, I think it was Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas radiallahu anhu, who said that, he felt he was going to die. And he said, I'm going to give all my wealth for the sake of Allah. And the Prophet ﷺ said, no. And then he said, I'll give half. And the Prophet ﷺ said, no. He said, I'll give 1/3 of my wealth for the sake of Allah. And the Prophet ﷺ said, no. And then the Prophet ﷺ told him, he said, to leave your family wealthy is better for you, more beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, than to leave them in poverty, going around begging people for money. So what I said earlier about, the encouragement to give in these last 10 nights of Ramadan, especially, and this race for good deeds, does not mean you're actually not allowed to give such a huge percentage of your wealth. You have to take care of yourself. And as you've seen the singer that we've been talking about in our classes, I said, when you take care of yourself first, you have more to give. So when you are saving, when you are investing, when you're building up your wealth and your assets and all of this stuff, that doesn't mean that you're being stingy. It means that you have the opportunity in the future to help people at a much larger scale when you have more wealth. But if you just kept giving everything, you're going to zero. Every time you get money, you go to zero. Then in the future, you have nothing to give anybody. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam. Assalamu alaikum azju. Nimra's question. Sheikh, are asabiqun al-awwal the type of people who always race towards good deeds, or anything first? Also, can you tell us more about Discover You Kids? I told Muhammad about it and he's super excited. The time is up, Nimra. So we're going to finish off. The first part of your question about who always race towards good deeds or anything first. I don't know what that question means. So let's skip it. With regards to Discover You Kids, so inshallah ta'ala, we are still launching it right now. And one of the key things that I'd like to learn about is from people who actually work in children education and children this and that, and get their feedback and guidance on the direction of things that we can do in Discover You Kids. So we have the material. We have classes, Millionaire Who Went to Jannah, about finances. We've got time management, time traveler. We have got Visionaire, designing dream duas, like instead of goal setting, actually designing your dream dua. So we've got the content built for adults, and just the key is like, how do we present that in a way that younger kids, younger Muslim boys and girls can consume that kind of information and benefit from it. So inshallah ta'ala, it is a project that's in the beginning. Jazakallah khairan, everyone. Thank you very much for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow on another episode of Taraweeh Truffle.